joined by my partner for short takes every month.
Hi, I'm Tove Kinooka and I'm in Yokohama, just outside Tokyo.
And it is the end of November, and you're probably seeing in your supermarkets, it is height mikan time. It's a wonderful time to go and buy your oranges. And we are coming into height lemon time. So, lemon is really famous in winter as well. So great way to get your vitamin C, but also great way to support Japan's local farmers, right? Especially in our area of Setsushi,
Very
where
much.
they have so many citrus farmers. Are you enjoying your mikans right now? Mikans
We
and
are.
kokatsu?
Mikans definitely every day. And last week I tried for the first time a different citrus fruit called yuko,
Oh,
which is a cross between sudachi, the Japanese lime, and yuzu, another
oh,
Japanese citrus. So it's very small, round, kind of yellow with a hint of green. And oh my God, it's so good. So
yeah.
yeah, I was really enjoying sort of lots of yuko drinks and dishes and things last week. So
Yeah, fantastic.
yeah,
Because you were in Shikoku, which is
I
famous
was.
for different kinds of citrus as well. Did you find the local tea, the fermented tea, the bancha?
Yes. Yes, the bancha, also drinking that every day. So yeah, I've been trying lots of new things, food and drink.
Fantastic. And
Mm.
of course, if you're suffering like me from a bit of a cold, having citrus and a bit of honey and a hot drink definitely helps a lot.
Yeah.
I hope everyone out there, you're taking care of yourself as well. It's getting colder around the world. We had a very long summer. Even the beginning of November was quite warm,
Mm.
unusually so. So we haven't really had that many autumn colors, but one of the things I'll be talking about later is uh,
Wow.
sustainable tourism strategies. And one
Mhm.
of the really nice ones that just started happening in Hiroshima was the autumn light up events. So opening your facility longer is a great way to spread out the crowds throughout the day. And so this is in Shukeien Garden in Hiroshima. Isn't it beautiful?
That is gorgeous. Wow. Wow, wow,
And
wow.
so you have all these amazing reflections happening in the pond in the middle as you walk around. And of course,
Mhm.
it's better for the economics as well of the city and of the facility because you can get more income if you also spread it out. Of course, you have to pay for staff, which is one of the hurdles I imagine
Mm.
for opening longer hours. But in our city center at the museum, we've had such long lines for the Peace Memorial Museum. This is one of the strategies they're considering also is opening longer hours. And I know all around Japan, it's a great standard strategy to try to reduce crowds and
Mhm.
enhance the experience. And then you can also get more income as well.
Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds good.
So let's talk about your visit to Kamikatsu. That is a really big deal. It was a sustainability mindset and entrepreneurship program. Tell us about it, Tova.
Yeah, so this is something we were excited to finally be there. We were supposed to be there in July, but then a typhoon got in the way, unfortunately, so we had to reschedule. So we went to Kamikatsu, the kind of famous for being the zero waste town in Shikoku. And as you can see there, we were with a group of 8 participants from a client, and we were piloting this program. So before we went, we did a one-day workshop with the participants on sort of looking at the basics of sustainability, understanding their company's kind of impact relationship with people and planet, positive and negative impacts. And then we went for 3 days, 3 full days at Kamikatsu. And as you can see, we did all kinds of activities from everything learning about composting, 45 different types of rubbish sorting there. So, 4 or 5 different categories for paper and many different plastics. This was the Sodai Gomi challenge, the kind of big rubbish garbage challenge. They were working in teams, and each team had a pile of sort of the kind of stuff you can't just throw away easily, like you can see their chairs and the suitcase and things like this. So the idea was that each team had to, first of all, look at it and kind of understand, well, or try and guess what kind of materials do they think this is made from, what could be recycled, what couldn't. And then they had a limited amount of time to actually just dismantle these things into its separate materials, and then to look at, once they'd separated everything, what could be recycled and how, and in what category, and so on. And it was so enlightening. I mean, it was really good fun. You can see people like tearing
Right?
apart hot carpets with the wire that goes right through, and chairs. Just look at the, the
Yeah.
foam and stuff coming out of those, and all these things that were sort of bonded together. We found a suitcase was probably the biggest nightmare. Because the materials were sort of different types of materials, very closely bonded together, which couldn't be separated, therefore couldn't be recycled. Very difficult to take apart in the first place, to separate anything out at all.
That
So
was one
that,
of the
yeah.
big things that stood out to me whenever I go,
Mm,
is how are we making these products which have mixed materials?
yes.
And nobody who's designing that product is thinking about the end stage.
Mhm,
How is that gonna be dealt with as garbage, right?
exactly.
And it just seems so crazy that we're creating these products that we have no idea how to deal with at the
No.
end stage, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I mean, that was really enlightening. So that's sort of on the environmental side, but also I think what's really interesting in the whole Kamikatsu area is looking at the sort of intersection of environmental and social sustainability issues. So we were also going around, like here was a panel discussion in the evening at a local sake brewery, but with local people who, one had lived there all her life, one had grown up there, moved away, come back. Somebody else had moved in more recently, and they're all living and working there. So sort of hearing from them, what is their experience of living in this area that's, struggling really economically. It's a beautiful area, but it's a tough place to make a living, and particularly if you've got young families and things. Not many options, transportation, school wise, all this kind of thing. That was sort of going up. We had breakfast out there in the morning in the rice fields with rice grown just below, and cooked over a fire, sort of as it would have been done many years ago there. And again, sort of talking to the farmer there and hearing about his struggles of, maintaining the grounds and um, the buildings and things like this. So we had a chance to sort of hear a lot of different perspectives, to talk to a lot of locals. And then next week we get together for the after workshop with the participants to look at how do we bring those learnings into the business, to actually look at what they're doing and think about how we can do that differently and better. So
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's great to see you had the composting. So this facility, you can see behind all the building itself is designed with reused materials from other buildings which were destroyed or not in use anymore. The whole
yeah,
hotel is designed like that. The Rise and Wind Brewery is designed like that. It's one of the really unique, key, appealing, stylish features of Kamikatsu as well.
yeah,
But every guest at the hotel also composts all of their organic waste. And
mhm,
the whole town 100% composts all their organic waste, which is one of the only places in Japan that does that. And
yeah,
it's an easy way to immediately reduce your waste by 30%. And
yeah,
why aren't we doing this more in Japan? There's so much key, like structural or foundational knowledge in action, and Kamikatsu, so many great takeaways there. So I'm
yeah.
so glad you were able to go there.
Finally got to go there. So hopefully this will be the first of many sort of iterations of this program, and we're looking forward to going again. So yeah, great experience.
Yeah,
Highly
fantastic.
recommended to anyone to go there. Mhm.
Yeah. And the staff at Hotel Y also do that tour of the waste
Yes.
facility if you sign up. And that is open to the public if you make a
Yep.
reservation. Even if you don't stay there, you can make a reservation to do that and to learn about, like you said, the 45 categories that they
Mhm.
separate into. Kamikatsu, I believe at the moment is still at 70% diversion from landfill or incinerator, which
Yeah.
is amazing
Mhm.
because most of Japan is maybe 20,
Yeah.
30% diversion
Yeah.
from landfill. So most of our waste is incinerated or landfilled.
Yeah.
And Kamikatsu is really a standout place to
It
study.
is, yeah, and it was great because when we were there with our client, we saw several other groups coming round that were from local governments elsewhere in Japan, coming to learn about what the area is doing there and how they're dealing with things. So it was really interesting for to see that happening as well, how they're using this as an education tool, not only for companies and individuals, but also for local governments.
And has been for a long time.
Yeah,
It's been going on since, 20 years now,
yeah.
that they had the incentive to make change because they had no money. And I think a lot of small towns are suffering with the same
Mhm.
problems. They don't have money for landfill, they don't have money for an incinerator. It costs too much to send it to
Yeah,
the next city. So, how are they going to deal with it on a local level? It
yeah.
started from need, but also with so much creativity, right?
Yes.
Because it takes a different mindset
Mm.
to start creating that new type of infrastructure, right?
Exactly, and that's why I think, we're calling it sort of sustainability intrapreneurship, the sort of program we're doing there, because really the idea is they see this mindset in action. They hear the stories from the locals, like, well, how did you even come up with this idea to do this project or that project? And when they can see that in action and the positive impact that it has, they can then take that back into their own organizations and think about, well, if we're working in a big corporate, we've got all these resources. How do we leverage that to actually have a positive impact, from whatever function you're in the organization? And I've just seen a comment here in the about sort of product and packaging life cycles needing to be sort of regulated by governments. Absolutely agree with that. I think the trouble is at the moment there are so many different types of plastics, of fabrics, of adhesives, of metals, all mixed together. And it does make it very, very difficult to do anything. But it's expensive for one company to stick their neck out and say, well, we're doing something different. That's a risk for them. So if the government could level the playing field with, through regulations, and then, drive the change that way, it would make a huge difference, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And great comment there from Z-san from Hawaii. Thanks so much for joining. I had the chance to guide Z around when he visited Japan, and we went around Onomichi.
Ah,
And it
wonderful.
takes me into my next topic,
Hmm.
which is trying to develop off the beaten track. Hiroshima is not just Peace Park and Miyajima. Surprise, surprise. We have a lot of places outside the top destinations which are definitely worth going and exploring. So I have some examples from Kure, how I've seen some sustainable strategies at work there. But
Brilliant.
Z was a great person to take around Onomichi because he's already got that sustainability mindset coming
Mhm.
from Hawaii. And
Yeah.
I see so many international visitors, they already are thinking on a different level when they come to Japan. And I think that is helping us hopefully push in a positive direction to have a more sustainable mindset. Definitely, businesses, hotels, restaurants, they're starting to get it because of the inbound market. They expect less
Mhm.
plastic, they expect more locally made products, reusables, those kinds of things. It's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's good. I mean, and there's a lot of learning to be had in both directions, I think. I think there's often an assumption that perhaps maybe people coming out of Europe, for example, might be more sustainably aware. And I think in some sort of areas, absolutely yes, that's the case. But in others, we see that that's quite surface, and there's still often a disconnect. They might be very good on one particular area, but then when you're looking at the whole big picture, and how sort of what the knock-on effects are, then there's often not as much understanding as you think. So still a
Yeah.
lot of work to do, and learnings to be had in all kinds of places, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Cake Marathon, nice of you to join us. And she says, or he, or say that they would love to go on a Kamikatsu tour with either of us, Tova. Maybe that's
Fantastic.
maybe that's an opportunity for us to develop a tour to Kamikatsu. I'd love
Sounds
to.
good.
Yeah.
Any excuse.
I often think about that. What a great place. So let me take you through some of the photos from the Kure tour. Of
Mm.
course, Kure is very famous as a Navy town. It's only an hour from Hiroshima, and it has a lot of museums, Navy focused cafes, restaurants, that kinds of things. So here's the mascot for the Yamato Museum, a cute girl mascot. But this takes me to one of the issues that I've noticed on a bunch of the tourism
Mm.
monitor tours and consulting that I've done is they have information in the Yamato Museum about the female students and their experiences as they were recruited by the military.
Hmm.
Here they talk about female students and their diaries that they wrote. But so often I've really noticed a
Mm.
glaring uh, absence of stories of women with names
Hmm.
in museums as I go around Japan recently.
Yeah.
And so I often ask the curators, you're talking about like a 500-year span of Japanese history,
Mm.
but there is zero stories about women here. What were the women doing? Were there no women? Were there no mothers or sisters or daughters or anyone? And I had some very flippant replies from
Really?
curators saying, "Oh, they were just courtesans, or they
Wow.
were just housewives." And I said, "Well, that's still fascinating and interesting, and they were still very a part of culture and
Yeah.
community and building what we know of as modern Japan. So we
Mhm.
still want to have their stories." It was really shocking to have that
Yeah.
response that they didn't do anything important. And that
Wow.
was, so it was nice to see that they're representing
Mm.
the stories of women at the Kure Yamato Museum, but still we don't see the names of the women.
Hmm.
And often you'll go around your city, you'll see
Mm.
statues of important men with names. You'll often see beautiful statues of women. They don't have names. Um,
Interesting. Yeah.
so just starting to think about and starting to document the
Mm.
names of women and the contributions of women throughout history is really important.
Yeah.
And so as a guide and someone working in tourism, I really feel like it's kind of our job to keep adding the names of women, adding the stories of women with
Yeah.
names, and how they contributed to the
Mhm.
history that we're talking about, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is half the population globally. This is not a minority we're talking about here. This
Pretty
is
sure there were women around,
there were
you know?
definitely women around and involved, I'm very sure of it.
And then a
Mm.
small point, fabulous to see water fountains. Yay. Let's start having water fountains maybe where you can refill your water bottle easier, not just the ones that you drink
Right.
from. Yeah, exactly. Check out my Mizu. One thing I was happy to see is you notice something about this drinks container?
Ah, no plastic?
No plastic. So it's made from cans and glass
Uh-huh.
and the laminate bottles are really special.
Hmm.
They collect the laminate bottles separately. Can you
Yeah,
guess why?
because the tops are plastic, right? So then what do they do with those?
Well, it's mixed material, so that's a problem.
Mhm.
But they're collected separately because they're reused. They're
Ha!
washed and reused.
Oh, that's
Uh,
good.
it's made by a local company.
Yeah.
So that's much better. If we can reuse containers, that's what you have there, Tova, your own water bottle to
Yeah.
refill and reuse. That's the best. If
That's
everybody could do that.
significantly less,
The best.
energy, water, et cetera,
Right?
than
But just
recycling.
under that is reusing the containers from the company,
Mm.
and that's the next high standard. And
Yeah,
then would be glass and aluminums that we can actually recycle,
yeah.
paper.
Mhm.
And then we just don't want to be using plastic anymore because even if you recycle plastic, it can be only be recycled one time, right? So
Mm.
we want materials we can keep recycling if we're going to use materials we recycle at all. Reusable would be best, right?
Yes.
But some of the cute candies are in metal containers. That was nice to see.
Mhm.
As you're walking around the museum, I often think about this because so many students are going to museums like this. They're using coal in the old ships. But
Hmm.
isn't this an opportunity to talk about they use coal, and now in our future ships, we're going to use
Mhm.
electricity, we're going to use hydrogen. Like,
Yeah.
it's an opportunity to talk about clean energy, right?
Very much so, very much so.
It'd
Yeah.
be nice to see. And
Mm.
here's an example of a board where you see, lots of names of men, but we don't see boards of women
Mm.
there, right? Men
Yeah.
are important. They have names. We want women with names too, please. This was interesting, connecting to local industry. So a lot of the shipbuilders in Kude after the war, they started working for Mazda and making Mazda cars, which is a really important local industry. So that was nice
Mhm.
to see. And there must have been women working there too. So
I'm sure there were.
I want to hear about that.
If anyone has any stories, please share.
Now, on the main street, it was nice to see some kind of innovation at work. So this is a local bakery,
Hmm.
and they don't want to stay open 24/7 because of the labor crunch, I'm sure, and they want to have a life. So what have they done? They have a little vending machine next to their bakery.
Huh.
And so this, I think, reduces food waste as well,
Mm.
because anything not sold in the bakery during opening hours, they can sell in the vending machine here anytime. So that vending machine is open 24/7. And what a great, nice, cool innovation, right? So I
Yeah,
was really happy to see that.
that's really interesting, and it could be applied to so many other kinds of sort of products as well that are sort of getting towards end of shelf life, would otherwise be waste. That's good to see.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. Now, Tove, you recently did a talk for HR. Now, how does HR and sustainability, how does that connect?
Well, that was the big question, and it was quite funny because it was this sort of 3-day global HR conference in Tokyo, sort of in collaboration with SHARM, the Strategic Human Resource Management Institute globally. So there were lots of fantastic presentations on DEI, on sort of HR, global strategy, and all this thing. And then I was standing up talking about sustainability, and you could see people thinking, exactly, why are we talking about sustainability at an HR conference? And it was a very short sort of time span I had to talk about it. But really, for us, HR are absolutely key to getting sustainability moving in an organization, bridging the gap, like the second point says there, between people and processes. Because I think I've probably mentioned every time we speak almost that a company spend a lot of time, effort, money, etc., looking at the process side of sustainability, setting the strategy and goals around that, measuring, looking at, how do they report and all of this, which is absolutely essential, very, very important. However, if people outside the sustainability team don't understand why are we doing this? What are we doing anyway? How does my part of the combination, the company contribute to this? Then things don't move forward. So this point I always bring up that sort of makes people sort of stop and think is the fact that if you reverse the kanji for company and society, it's the same kanji reversed, right? So shakai and kaisha. Um, so really, we need to be thinking about the people side of sustainability. And so we were talking about that and sort of very briefly, what is HR's role in supporting the implementation of the sustainability strategy, of helping people throughout the organization understand how it connects to what they do, to making sure that people are getting training, they're getting the information they need, they're being involved in the conversations when strategy and processes have been changed or created. And so if we HR are the people that drive this, right? HR is the function that drives this. And when we're looking at sustainability, it really is a massive organizational change initiative, really, to move from business as was, as usual, into embedding sustainability. It's a huge change initiative, and that needs to be driven very much on the ground by HR. So that was the sort of start of the conversation. And then we're still setting the date, but hopefully early March, we're going to be collaborating with one of the major Japanese banks to do an open workshop on sustainability for HR professionals. So getting the HR people in the room with the sustainability leaders and saying, you guys need to talk.
Yeah.
Let's look at what are the questions you have, what are the struggles and challenges you have, and let's look at how we move that forward.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
we'll
I think
give you
if
more
you
info
look
on that.
at like you've worked with hotels as well, Tova,
Mm,
and I think if you look at HR at hotels, especially international hotel
yes.
chains, they are so connected to
Yeah,
sustainability.
very much.
And they often say our staff are our biggest strategy
Mm,
to developing a sustainability mindset and to
exactly.
stop food waste, stop water waste, stop
Mm,
energy waste, to develop new ideas, new strategies,
yeah.
not only to really please the customers, but to have happier workers
Yeah. Yeah.
as
Very
well as to reduce our environmental impact.
much.
So this is what we're always talking about, right? How do you balance the needs of people and planet with profits? And definitely HR is such a key role to that.
Very much, very much. So yeah, I'm really excited to see where we go with this topic and to get more people into the conversation. So yeah, we'll keep you posted.
Yeah, fantastic.
Mm.
I had some guests recently, and they were Hungarian hoteliers.
Ooh,
So they work really hard during the summer, like crazy. They said 24 hours a day for like 6 months. And then they take 6 months off
oh,
for the
fantastic.
rest of the year and they travel
Mm.
around the world. So it was a pleasure showing
Mm.
them around Hiroshima. But also, I had so many insights from them about their point of view about Japanese hospitality.
Hmm.
And they were purposefully choosing non-international hotels to stay at because they wanted to see what traditional Japanese hospitality is like.
Yeah. Hmm.
And it's sad to say they were disappointed
Yeah.
that they didn't see what they think of as high quality hospitality is
Interesting.
flexibility.
Huh.
And they didn't see that. They
Mm.
didn't see that personalized catering to the
Right.
customer in the places they were
Mm.
staying.
The
And this is
different
something I
expectations
hear.
to deliver.
Yeah, this is something I hear a lot
Mm.
from international visitors. And I think the international hotel chains are more aware of
Mm.
this need for flexibility. This is definitely a struggle for Japanese businesses, especially traditional ones.
Mm.
I'll give you an example from my recent monitor tour. We go to a traditional Japanese hotel. It looks lovely. We walk into the lobby and the staff greet us and say, "Oh, we're going to do the bath. We have a shared bath. We're going to do it traditional Japanese style. So all the men are going to go first."
Oh.
And this is to a mixed group of international people.
Mm.
No, sorry, that's
Mm.
not going to work for us, but that idea that we have a technique, we've always done it this way, it's
Mm.
perfect, we don't need to change. I think even for Japanese customers, I don't think that's acceptable now to
Mm.
have those
Mm.
kind of old style, and then add the fact that you have vegan vegetarians in the group and they couldn't serve a meal to us. They
Yeah.
just couldn't think of a way,
Mm.
even though they had hot pot, it was mostly vegetables, a little bit of meat. They could have easily offered us one without the meat.
Mm.
There's just that the ability to think, how can we adapt and cater hospitality to what
Mm.
these
Yeah.
unusual customers, and are we unusual? Everybody has different needs or things,
Yeah.
you know?
But
So
that's
anyway.
interesting because I mean, particularly on the food front, I remember my first year in, well, probably about a month or so after I arrived in Japan, 'cause I arrived in November 1998, so a very long time ago. Um, and my first sort of Christmas and New Year here, I went with one of my Japanese colleagues to stay with her family in Kyoto. And her father took us out for a meal one day at this beautiful restaurant beside one of the temples. And it was all vegan, and it was beautiful Japanese food that was 100% vegan. It was sort of 7 herbs, tofu, nabe, and things like this. So the knowledge is here that the customs. I mean, it was us foreigners that bought the meat in, to be honest. Unfortunately, I'm very embarrassed about that. But this knowledge is here. So a lot of it's about sort of rediscovering the wonderful stuff that was here and still is in little pockets here and there. If we can
Absolutely.
highlight that, I
But
mean,
Tova, what you were saying about the HR conference too, the knowledge is definitely there
oh yeah,
as well for how
absolutely.
sustainability is connected to
Mhm.
community, who's connected to your success as a business. This is Sampo Yoshi. These are classic traditional
Exactly.
ideas for Japanese business, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of reconnecting to that, I think. A lot of it's there, but maybe buried under many layers of bureaucracy and hitting KPIs and all of this stuff. So if we can dig it out again, I think there's a lot to be proud of and a lot of good stuff happening.
Absolutely. Well, that is our 30 minutes. Thanks again, Tova. That was great discussion. Thank you so much, everyone. Z and Cake Marathon, you guys had great comments and questions today. I really appreciated you being here from YouTube. And if you're watching this on replay and you have any questions or comments, make sure to add them below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm told I do not say that enough.
There you go. Got it in.
I got it in. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Have a great day, and we'll see you next month.
Brilliant. Thank you.